Hello, friends, a very warm welcome. And in the series that we have been taking up, very important themes, upcoming ideas, global developments. So, in the same series, we are now taking up the first point, that is AI can predict tipping points before they happen. This is a very crucial element into this because tipping point is the point of no return. That is why it becomes very important. So, from economics to epidemiology, everywhere we are saying that artificial intelligence can really help in predicting in a crucial time. So this is a critical transition, and it is obviously an algorithm based, or you can say mathematical based understanding. One example is the financial crisis of 2007, 2009, or even COVID-19, or in today's time, if I talk about mpox, or if you can predict about global crude prices. So the computer scientists in China, they can show artificial intelligence can help in predicting what dangers are ahead before they become a real danger. So real world problems, predicting floods, power outages, landslides, earthquakes, something or more than that. So in financial system, they may get an element from a single company or from an ecosystem, as they are saying, and optimizing it, and that's how they are trying to predict. But to train a model, it is going to take time. And these synchronized oscillations of ideas can help in predicting a certain behavior through algorithms. For example, how Earth is changing, how satellite images or even annual rainfall data is changing over decades. So this is very interesting, and we would like to understand from this perspective that for India, as we have been already studying, India is one of the greatest AI hubs after America, China, and UK. If we talk about top 10 countries in the world, then India's name also figures in that. So India is also creating critical technologies, and we agree that one element, if you are writing in ethics, or even if you are writing an essay, or otherwise also in any general studies paper, that what AI can do. So AI can predict something before it is critically happening, whether it is heat wave, whether it is uh, hyper local rainfall, or whether it is about flash floods and so on. So the critical transition, raw data will be used and algorithms will be predicting the same. We can move to the next topic, please.
जी सर.
Gene editing drugs are moving from lab to clinic at lightning speed. So, Mansi, what is gene editing?
So gene editing, it forms the part of the DNA. So when we are, if there is again any error or anything which is causing supposed disease, so we can edit that gene using, for example, CRISPR-Cas9 technology. So changing the DNA and the strands and the base pairs that we have in particularly DNA, which is the double-stranded DNA.
You mean to say double helical structure, the ATGC, adenine, guanine, thymine, and cytosine.
जी sir.
So this is what they're talking, but they are still saying the technical and economic aspect is tough. But then gene editing is a very uh, important tool which is in the hand of humans. It has got ethical dilemmas also. For example, they are giving a case study of Ireland. So eventual diagnosis, which was amyloidosis, a rare genetic disease. So they are thinking that how such diseases can be eliminated or can be prevented. So gene editing, CRISPR-Cas9, as we just said, this technology has moved from lab to clinic at lightning speed, and they are using gene editing to improve the vision of people who are having the inherited condition that blindness. Sickle cell anemia, we have heard a lot, or to be more precise, certain other kind of developments which human body suffers. So CRISPR-Cas9, it is explaining, we have explained it elsewhere also in the newspaper sessions and also in other videos And our quote says that CRISPR-Cas9 is a pair of molecular scissors that cuts DNA at a precise location. So a piece of RNA, single-stranded version of DNA attached to the medicine, guides the cutting enzyme. That is, the cutting enzyme is Cas9. Jab DNA is cut, cell's natural repair mechanism swings into action and it binds it. So gene editing medicines, they are, you can say, creating a kind of an atmosphere where they are replacing an existing segment, but with a new corrected sequence. So piece of information for prelims is that gene editing, that is CRISPR-Cas9, was discovered in the lab in 2012, and then within 3 years, it went on to use to edit pig embryos to create organs more suitable for transplantation into humans. By 2016, it was approved for testing in the patients with cancer, but definitely it wanted to improve the immunity. And by following year, that means in 2017 onwards, we can say pharmaceutical companies in US, that is Boston, Massachusetts, and Zug, that is Switzerland, they were developing a treatment called CTX001, a treatment for two disorders, that is sickle cell disease and the beta thalassemia. So they are genetic faults, and that is how they are trying to, today that it is known as Casgivy, arrived on market in 2023. So that means it has become a reality. It involves collecting blood stem cells from a patient, editing a gene within them, and to restart the production of a new type of hemoglobin that is produced only when a baby is in the womb. And that is how you can say a new life is starting. The patient is capable of creating enough healthy RBC to treat the system. But the question arises, is CRISPR-Cas9 has some limitations, Mansi?
Yes, so definitely it has limitations in terms of the precision, or we are not sure about the element of success. So that
Correct.
is one thing. And then limitations in terms of the ethical angle also, sir. The purpose of usage is the major limitation.
Yeah, even in case of sciences, even if the wrong DNA portion is cut or it is imprecise, then
Ji.
eventually it will be disrupting cellular function and finally maybe leading to cancer. And ethical element, as you are saying, the base editing, that can also be wrong. So some of these techniques which are already being used, they have different kind of what I should say repercussions. But then we have to see that how a new developments and new kind of treatment in the Western world is changing everything. For India, also it is a good news. In India, India do not promote mindless development of such technologies in laboratory, in research and development. We are doing so, but then we will also be looking forward to having solutions for diseases like Huntington disease and so on. So the technological progress in gene editing is not stopped yet, and there is a method called bridge RNA. So bridge RNA, it uses a form of guide RNA, that means one is guiding, that recognizes two stretches of DNA, the target site and the new gene to be inserted. So this new technique allows large stretches of DNA to be added, or if required, they can be removed also. So bridge, as the name suggests, it is bridging. Similarly, new techniques may be having certain safety and ethical issues, as I just said. The biggest challenge in terms of economics, because it is very, very expensive. For example, a shot of hemgenics, that is hemophilia B gene therapy, is costing US $3.5 million, even more than Casgivy. So how do you think it will be mass produced? How do you think it is really going to help people who are really requiring it? Treating diseases that affect larger patient groups such as heart disease, they would be coming into picture, and then only cost can be down. Without the cost cutting, I don't think anything can help. So दिव्या, आप बताइए एथिकल पर्सपेक्टिव से आप क्या मानते हैं?
सर ह्यूमन वैल्यूज हो सकती है कि किस तरह से उसका यूज किया जा रहा है ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोगों को ट्रीट करने के लिए। जैसे एक्सपेंसिव से उसमें बोल सकते हैं कि जब हम इंडिया के पर्सपेक्टिव से देखते हैं तो 4 से 5 करोड़ अप्रोक्स एक इंसान को लगता है, लेकिन जब हम डिजीज की बात करते हैं तो 1.5 लाख के अप्रोक्स पीपल मिलते हैं अगर काउंट देखा जाता है डाटा के अकॉर्डिंग, तो उसमें इशूज हो सकते हैं। उसके अलावा प्लेजर विद कंसर्न की बात होती है सर कि किस तरह से जब इथिकल वैल्यूज को उसमें हम यूज करते हैं तो डॉक्टर्स की या फिर
हाँ, डॉक्टर या फिर सो वी
पेशेंट की
लॉस्ट।
कंडीशन की बात की जाती
बिल्कुल सही कहा आपने। सो मानसी, वी कैन मूव टू द नेक्स्ट वन प्लीज।
जी सर।
So these both science topics, they are very, very important and having different dimensions. Now the topic is about Ethiopia. Ethiopia, that is in the Middle and East Africa. When we speak about lawlessness is spreading, and Ethiopia is in the midst of a kidnapping epidemic. So Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, one of the developing cities. But then, as it is saying, that law and order, governance, and also anarchy is always prevalent, and that is why there will be people who are kept hostage, and then money is demanded. That means kidnapping, and a kind of a cycle starts. It is already a debt-laden economy. So even if IMF is giving them a loan, more market-friendly reforms are encouraging donors and investors, but without political stability, civil war in the northern region of Tigray, where more than 500,000 people have thought to be died. So it is very ironical that even if more than double the people what is written here have died, we are still saying thought to have died. So this is a very, very myopic and a Western-centric approach. And the peace deal between federal government and the authorities in Tigray, it brought a kind of a peace, but then still conflict is not ending, and prominent groups are coming up. So this is a reality for Africa, without which we cannot say that there can be a sunrise for Africa, and even African Union cannot do much. World is not bothered. Western world is looking forward to its own consolidation, and Africa's number comes very late. So the question arises that whether it is kidnapping, whether it is control or role of mercenaries, or whether it is control over mines by China or even Russia, or even control of a rural economy, what in general is actually natural resources. These things actually weakening the state, and the government is having no control, as it is, we can read over here also, and the different kind of regional paramilitary outfits, they are fighting against the federal government. There is a rebellion, but the common people are suffering. So kidnapping is one aspect, and even they are saying that the victims are to be blamed. Ethiopian condition is like famine-like condition. Salaries are not paid. Agriculture is collapsing. Informal rural economy is also collapsing. What makes the country survive in one industry, Mansi, if you want to name out?
So one industry particularly, we can talk about specific existence of so critical or rare earth minerals can be one thing, or it is
But
again
that is,
closer to Horn of Africa also, so might be some oil trade or oil reserves can be one thing.
but then this is a good answer what you said. But then this has a very long gestation period. That is why I expected that you will give me answer something like Addis Ababa is known for high-end tourism, foreign tourists. It is dependent upon the tourism industry. But then tourists will also demand safety, and businessmen will also demand safety.
Ji, so.
That is what we can think about. And these kind of developments, they are plaguing not only Ethiopia, but countries like Pakistan, or even a larger part of Latin America. We keep on reading about it, and even Africa. What remains? Certain part of Asia only remains. We can move forward.
Ji, so.
Chinese firms are growing rapidly in global south. As we have just discussed about Ethiopia, we will continue our discussion further on the same lines. The corporate world in China is seeing that it is essential to do business, but in a cheaper way, in a non-negotiable way, in a way where they can monopolize. So China's manufacturing sector is looking forward to the cheap raw materials which they are getting from the global south, When we say global south, that means we are talking about Africa, we are talking about the down south world, whether it is Latin America or even Africa. So Chinese firms, they are world class in their approach. They are having great command and control. For example, China's stock of outbound FDI was equivalent to just 17% of its GDP last year, compared with 34% of Africa and 49% of Germany. So this change is there. And firms are actually generating a lot of foreign revenue. So the point is that how quickly they are doing is Chinese firms, their sale is increasing. If you are not going to have external debt for a long time and only you are attracting greenfield FDI, you are going to get lot of long-term sustenance and nobody can stop the growth of China. When we say that there is a role of domestic economy, then on that front also we are saying that it is fiercely competitive. Prices are very competitive. There may be a large inventory, but still it's a long way to go when we can think that Chinese will have a lot of problems. So the companies like TikTok, they are also having a great market. In America, we read about that ban is going to be imposed, but nobody has banned till now. And there are firms which are shifting production from China to other developing countries. For example, in solar firms, we have read about it. In fact, we had just discussed some days back that how Indian domestic companies, they are having the solar panels and equipment at a much higher price, but we are not importing it from China. So the strategy pays or not in the longer run, we have to see. So China is dumping, China is putting across a lot of efforts. For example, America imports almost no solar panel directly from China, but it is buying from Southeast Asia. So Chinese firms are actually the largest producer of those solar modules, and they have built big factories. Jinko Solar, Trina Solar, Longi. So the strategy is working for China. India must also learn from it. They are not creating in their own country, they are creating in the third country. And then they are sending the destination to the Western world and so on. So Chinese electric vehicle company, it has opened a car factory in Thailand. It's first in Southeast Asia. A Chinese battery firm is expanding, for example, in Morocco and Turkey. So the trade data suggests that factories are relying heavily on the import from Chinese components. There are no local supply chains. Now, this is a different strategy which India is taking up, but India still, Elon Musk, who was supposed to come, but it didn't come up. So for us, we have to see how we can be more profitable, more environment friendly, more ease of doing business, and so on. So Chinese, you can say greenfield FDI imports from China of intermediate goods. This is increasing more and more. For example, Mexico, as I just said, if you talk about South world, China is getting a lot of investment in terms of raw materials, rare earth metals, and other things from Africa also. But then China's Belt and Road Initiative, it is also channeling more than 1 trillion investment, whether it is railways, ports, and so on. China is also linked with Colombo, that we know about the port over there, Hambantota port. Similarly, even if American tariffs are extended to many solar products which are made by Chinese firms in Southeast Asia, but the still is that the global value chain over which China's tentacles are increasing, or what we can say is that the way China is spreading its power and certain visible and invisible areas are there, then you are not going to stop, you can't stop China like that. So these are popular strategies. One strategy which they are using is with Australia. For example given here is that Chinese companies are battling Western rivals at home, have tended to start offering cheap alternatives. Now, when they will be providing cheap alternatives, for example, half of smartphones purchased by Africans are made by Francian, a Chinese company that is selling devices for less than $100. Techno, Inflix, Intel, we are also trying so, but we have not become smart enough that we can replace Chinese phones, not just in India, but in Africa also. So Chinese makers, they are having great command over Africa, as I just said, Brazil, Mexico, which are the biggest consumers. Even in terms of textiles, Chinese firms are honing their mastery in manufacturing, and they are no more known for poor quality. They are selling complex products. So Chinese car makers in Thailand, they are increasing every year. And half of the cars sold in Russia, which the Western rivals have, obviously, they have shunned China since Ukraine war. Then that is also going from China. Chinese makers of medical equipment, patient monitoring systems in Latin America. China is making wind turbines. How are you going to stop China in emerging markets? That's the question. So we have to be smart. It is not possible like that just by talking, don't import from China. Then you remain poorer, you remain backward, you remain deficient. So they are finding it easy to sell in global south because they are now shifting their production in these countries. For example, in Ethiopia, we have just discussed, and they are actually investing in Pakistan also. The Western world is increasingly suspicious of China, but they are not doing much. It is the China which is factory of the world. For example, Indians are also thinking that how to deal with that. Our trade with China is increasing. Our net import deficit is increasing. So it is a testament to brand China, which is showcasing whether it is a coffee chain, whether it is washing machine, whether it is fiber clothes, whether it is textiles, whether it is solar panels, you name it, and China is even selling in India ceramic cups and glasses and whatnot. So it's a very serious thing, and it is very important for India to understand that China must be beaten in its own game with a homegrown competition. But for that, we need a lot of investment, technologies, and as it is said, that in 2016, listed American and European firms together generated 15 times the foreign sales of Chinese firms in the global south. Now, this ratio has come down to 5. Chinese firms are already outselling Japanese in the developing world. So developing world itself is a big market, and we are not talking about India. We should talk about Reliance, we should talk about Tata, we should talk about other our big firms, but they are nowhere to see. So we may be somewhere helping the whole global value chain, but the China's geopolitical ambitions, China Sea, Pacific Ocean, and even our relations with China, and even the question of Belt and Road Initiative, whether it is Zambia, whether it is Sri Lanka, whether it is Burma, everywhere we see is the footprint of China. So in this slide, Mansi, how do you think India, which itself need to have more renewable energy, we need to have more smarter way of life, need to handle its own bluff or even landslides and even infrastructure. China's GDP is 5 times that of India. How do you see we can handle this?
So, like right now, we are focusing upon self-reliance. We are focusing upon how to increase the capacity of India's manufacturing and industry sector. So, in that case, we are having different, for example, PLI scheme is there or DLI scheme is also there. We are focusing upon development of more industrial parks so that we are having again everything or all the services at one place. And even in this, when we're talking about import reliance over China, so there India is focusing upon diversifying our import players even through signing more of bilateral free trade agreements also. So that is one of the ways through which we are reducing our risk as far as China's monopoly is concerned and self-sufficiency. So these two factors are the main things that we are focusing more upon. And sir, as we are seeing that China has comparative advantage in manufacturing sector, and that is why it is taking again an advantage of that even in the other countries as we just saw. So India has comparative advantage in services sector. So India can compete in that area. Like China is, if it is ensuring the Chinese firms are present in different countries. So this can be one thing which can be again a shift where we can move forward on the part of India.
Hmm. We can move to the next one, please.
Ji, sir.
So now this topic is with respect to the business. And that too also when we are talking about Bank of Japan, which has raised its benchmark interest rate for only the second time in 17 years. Mansi, why?
So, because we are seeing that economic conditions in different economies are different. So, when we're talking about Japan, so their inflation might not be such a risky thing, or it might not be so high that the Bank of Japan needs to consistently increase the repo rate even after the COVID-19 pandemic. So, we can say it is well placed when it comes to managing its supply or its important presence even in the supply chain globally. So that
And
can.
what is the role of what is the role of American economy directly or indirectly in this?
So American economy can be in terms of trade. It can be in terms of ensuring the stability, uh, in the sense of like the close location of Japan to China. So dealing with that, Japan has strong relations with US. And even when talking about defense relations, so even they are very, we can say very strong on the part of Japan and US economy.
Mhm. So it is also talking about big firms and companies like Boeing and even Airbus and even Microsoft. So Microsoft is, when we discuss, it is saying that the revenue from its Azure cloud division went up by 29%. And even then they are saying that it is slightly below their expectations. Meta is also increasing its spending in AI, and global outage, which we had just discussed some time back also, that there was a kind of disruption, but this is speaking about something else. These things definitely makes a difference to the whole business platform. So what we are seeing from this understanding is that the big companies, big firms, which are multinational firms and having their headquarters in the US, they reflect the US economy, and their network over rest of the world. So these ideas and thoughts really help us to understand what is happening in and around the world in terms of global economics, role of IMF or even World Bank, which is indirectly definitely responsible for carrying out large number of initiatives which are linked with humanity.
Ji, sir. So one more last article we can take. It is also, I think, is it the same? Chinese companies are winning the global south.
So we have discussed this, but the here the topic is different. Then the question arises that what are the lessons? What are the lessons that already existing top players of the Western world for them is there? And is there anywhere India? What are the lessons for India? I would say it is not about the Western world, but it's about the India. The lesson is that we must be part of globalized supply chain. We must do things by which greenfield foreign direct investment comes to us. We must pursue our growth, and we must become a 5 trillion economy as soon as possible and then move forward to 10 trillion and then so on. We must look forward to increasing our GDP and our economic growth in such a way where we are having good relations and strategic relations with especially Africa, and even for that matter with Latin America, because they are the emerging markets. Africa and Africa, next centuries of Africa only. We must not erect trade barriers or protectionist measures, because we have to be smart enough. But then we have to understand that we cannot allow India to be dumping down the Chinese goods, Chinese firms. They will be skirting restrictions by shifting their productions. India must also look forward to create big production houses, but at the same time we need jobs also. India need to create jobs, affordable medical devices. In that India can be a global leader, but then China is also, in fact, China is supplier of raw ingredient towards us, pharmaceutical. If we speak about so low cost climate friendly technologies, India must create. India has got so many startups, must take advantage. And then how India can survive the Western competition, Western MNC competition. And in this context, India will also have a great role to play. For example, in EV and even batteries, right now China is a leader. Other thing what we can learn is that how the policies in China, they are not sustainable. how India can create a model for itself, it can create job, it can promote innovations at competition. How Chinese products, if they are giving choice and innovation, and they are actually driving away unproductive and stagnant local industries away, how India can suffer, India can create another kind of condition for that. So much of the business uh, by the Chinese companies in the south, that is in Africa or in South Asia, East Asia, then that is the final assembly. India must also learn that how we can create market for ourselves, how we can reduce cost, and how we cannot, alienate the local people in the jobs which China may be doing. And that is how America and Japan, they were also becoming great power like that, and they both know how China is moving ahead. So the point is that when the Western world promoted globalization, it was benefiting them. Now they are looking inward, and Chinese competition is actually making them uncompetitive. But India is not doing like that. India is having large number of FTAs and regional trade agreements, and even we are promoting it. So we have to be smart. We have to take positive risk. We have to promote the governance system, and that is how what we can say India can become one of the world's fastest growing economy by its own merit, by its talented resources, and जिसे हम इंडियन जुगाड़ कहते हैं. अगर चाइना को रिवॉर्ड मिल रहे हैं of being spreading its tentacles, and India can have its own space, can have its own place, and India will not even bow down by the tactics and also by the high-handedness of China when it comes to border or any other kind of dispute. We cannot be bullied. We are the one who will show them their right place.
जी सर.
So with this we end, and Mansi, you can wrap up by speaking a couple of lines on what had been your understanding for the today's session.
So my learnings firstly includes again the comparison of India's economy and the Chinese economy. The important learnings that Indian policy has the element of democracy. We are more worker centric. We focus upon the protection of their rights, and at the same time, Indian economy is not externally driven. That is through the export sector or the external demand. So that is why we are focusing upon our self-sufficiency on the human resource. So this is one thing. And in terms of the importance of the topic of science and technology regarding gene editing, what are the limitations? We often talk about more about the positives. So we discussed about the limitations, be it like the technical or its precision or the success rate or the ethical angle and the cost. So these are my major learnings, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you. Divya, you would like to add something more?
सर जीन एडिटिंग में देख सकते हैं कि डेंटोलॉजी और नॉर्मेटिक इथिक्स के पार्ट्स आ सकते हैं. और जब हम चाइना की बात करते हैं तो जैसे इंडिया कोची शिपयार्ड इंडस्ट्री है उसको वो डेवलप कर सकता है ताकि शिपिंग को प्रमोट किया जा सके. एक्सपोर्ट के रिगार्डिंग उसके जो पार्ट्स होते हैं मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर में देखते हैं PLI स्कीम के तहत जो चाइनीज वर्कर्स को इंडिया में 6 मंथ के लिए वीजा दिया जा रहा है ताकि स्किल को प्रमोट किया जा सके.
बहुत बढ़िया, ठीक है, आपने सही पॉइंट बोले. वी विल गेट बैक. सो रिवाइज, look back, go to the series of discussions which we had, get success. Thank you very much.